Alright, hello again, people of the internet. This is your favorite nobody YouTuber coming to you with another video about tactical gear. So today what we have for review is the Platatac SMAC Gen 3 plate carrier. This is the slick low profile version. Same as the previous review, we're going to give a quick overview of the general quality of it, and then some thoughts on the features and overall usefulness of the carrier in regards to it being an actual scalable and slick carrier that it seems to be designed towards. Alright, the first thing is I did not get this with Platatac's cummerbund that comes with it because I already had plenty of my own cummerbunds that essentially function the same. And were actually, I had a couple of that were actually a similar design, so I didn't really need them. So all the testing with wearing this plate carrier has been with my own cummerbunds, but that doesn't really make a difference as the design of the cummerbunds is essentially the same as what Platatac is selling. With that out of the way, let's get on with it. So we'll start with the front. The front end is your basic slick scalable design that we've all become familiar with over previous years. You have a basic piece of 6-inch Velcro on the front here with your swift clip buckles and a Velcro field up front. Rear plate bag is also slick with no molly, a flap, a piece of Velcro, and a drag handle. On the inside, it has 3D mesh, similar to what the Slickster had on it, but a slightly different type of material. Other than that, it's about the same, about 1/4 inch thickness of 3D mesh. Alright, so starting with the front, it's overall pretty good. Your basic slick scalable carrier front end. I have 2 gripes and a couple of yays. Let's go with that. My number one gripe is, again, the fact that they didn't just use a single piece of 5 or 6 inch Velcro here on the front. Instead, they've used a 4-inch and a 2-inch piece sewn together separately to make 6 inches. I don't like that because I've seen on some other carriers of similar designs this becomes over heavy use of stuff being out the front can potentially become a durability issue. That being said, I think, for example, like if you had one of the original Mayflower APCs, they actually overlapped the 4-inch piece on top of the 2-inch piece. And so, of course, what would happen over time is with you pulling the front flap up over and over again, it would keep pulling the edge of that overlapping piece up, and eventually that would become loose and frayed and generally start to wear out. So at least they didn't do that with this, and have just sewn them next to each other instead of trying to overlap it. That being said, I feel like having 2 pieces of Velcro sewn together is still a little bit less of a durable design choice than a single solid piece of 6-inch Velcro, which, going to the rear plate bag, Velcro's strong. They've repeated in the rear plate bag. They've repeated it both for the bottom of the bag as well as for the flap. Kind of annoying. Obviously, Velcro exists in sizes where they don't need to do this. Considering it requires time to sew an extra piece of Velcro on, I don't really see any any advantage to doing a 2-piece design like this. But hey, some companies do it. Alright, so that's that first gripe with that. My second gripe is with the area up here. Two things. Number one, it does have a pocket. You can see here, a pretty generous pocket behind this piece of Velcro. And the great thing is, it's not just the Velcro itself forming the pocket. It is actually, I don't know if you can see that, it is actually backed with a piece of Cordura like it should be, which is awesome. And then they didn't put a piece of Velcro on the inside so that it actually stays closed, or so that, you know, either or add a zipper at the top or something like that. So it's a pretty decent pocket, and it actually goes down all the way to the top of the large piece of Velcro on the front of the thing. So it's definitely easily deep enough to fit a Write in the Rain notebook or other similarly sized stuff. But there's nothing at the top to keep the pocket closed, to keep all your stuff from sliding out the top of the pocket. So, as is going to be a repeating gripe of mine with all these carriers, it's sort of like half in the bag. Alright, so the other thing I don't really like about it is, especially since they did go out of their way to back it properly with a piece of Cordura, the other thing I'm not a huge fan of is just blank pieces of Velcro. I very much would have preferred them to have it be cut for a standard 4x2 molly field, so that you can use it either with one of those small admin pouches or an end user device or similar things like that that people mount to this area. I think in this day and age, especially with electronic devices becoming more prevalent, choosing only to put a piece of Velcro on the front of your carrier, even if it's supposed to be a slick carrier like this, is kind of doing the end users a bit of a disservice, because now you're taking away a capability. Yeah, I don't see any reason why not to do that. As far as the buckles go, they're standard. These are proper, nice ITW Swift Clip buckles. The webbing is, as you can see, bar tacked on here nicely, as it should be. I will say, too, my peeve about shoulder straps on a lot of other carriers has been answered on this carrier. These are nicely bar tacked in place, and there's about an extra inch-ish of material coming down from below it. So if for some reason you felt you wanted to, you know, add an extra piece of bar tacking in here, or sew a little box stitch in here or something to just sort of reinforce it, although I don't see why you would need to, because this bar tacking is very nice and tight. However, it does come really right to the edge of the material of the Cordura. Close enough where I would say, if you look at either side, it's close enough to the end where any little hiccup with the placement of this when sewing it would potentially cause it to overrun. Not that that's going to stop it from holding, but just for my pet peeve, you know, need for neatness and efficiency, it's a little close to the edge for me to really be like, wow, that's, you know, perfectly done. So other than that, though, you can see at the back end too here with the mesh backing. It's also some right at the top of this mesh backing. But same deal, it is, you know, it goes all through real nicely. It's real nice and tight. And if you really were so worried about it that you're like, I don't know if I entirely trust this to not, you know, potentially start pulling out from the Cordura, there's excess in here where you could add your own. So, hallelujah, somebody that makes one of these slick carriers actually does the sewing for the straps right, so there is hope for humanity. As far as the actual construction of the plate bag itself, this is, I'm guessing, 500D Cordura. I've noticed that the Cordura that they use, Platatac uses, is a little bit different than some of the other Corduras. It has a bit of a coarser feel to it, but it's not 1000D. I'm not sure what the difference is. Maybe it's just the way that different textile companies, different materials, different weaves, maybe stuff like that. So it's a slightly different feel than the really smooth stuff that you see with a lot of US made gear. That being said, it's not the cheap Chinese shit. So I don't see there being any durability issues. If anything, it's a little bit thicker than a lot of very thin stuff you see on the US gear. So I have no complaints about that. Actually, I kind of like it. The overall construction is great. Not only are the shoulder straps nicely bar tacked in, but the main plate bag is not just Velcro, Cordura Velcro. It's a Velcro field sewn onto an entire Cordura plate bag, as it should be. Same thing with the 3D mesh on the back. The 3D mesh on the back isn't just 3D mesh. It is also backed with some of this slick, looks like a ripstop type material. Now, my concern about that is, given this is that really soft nylon pack clothish cut material, what this is going to do as far as heat retention with the 3D mesh here is potentially interesting. I haven't had a chance to wear this in really hot weather yet, so I don't know, but I wonder if that will make a difference. Other than that, there's a 2-inch piece of Velcro on the flap, which engages with cooperate, damn it. Well, you can't see that well, but a 4-inch piece of Velcro on the inside of the plate bag, which is great because it gives you a little bit of leeway if your plates are a little shorter than fitting the exact bottom of the bag. That way, if the plates are shorter, I'm a real pro at this, aren't I? If your plates are shorter or thinner, and this flap isn't engaging, exactly with the Velcro at the end to end here, and it goes down a little further, it has room to actually fold completely flat and still entirely engage the whole piece of 2-inch Velcro on the flap, which is great. As an even more of an added bonus, on the inside of the plate carrier, it has a riser strap with a, well, you probably can't see that because it's dark, but there's a piece of vertical Velcro that goes about 3.5, maybe 4 inches up the back of the carrier above the standard 4-inch square piece that already exists. So this will actually allow you to use plates that are a little bit different in size, given that this is sized for standard sappy mediums. So like a 9.5 by 12.5, but like if you use a what they call a 10 by 12 plate, some of those are more like 11 inches, 11.5 inches. So they can vary a little bit. And with the riser strap, technically, if you really want to, you could throw a small plate in here. Why you would do that, I don't know, but I guess you could wear a medium-sized carrier with a small plate in it if you wanted to. I just like the riser strap for the simple fact that, again, not only does it help you account for any differences in 10 by 12 versus sappy plate size, but I like the extra little bit of security it gives you. Even though the flap for the bottom of this thing is more than good enough to hold the plate in by itself and does properly and fully grasp all the Velcro it needs to grasp, I like having the extra riser strap to go in there just, because I'm paranoid about plates falling out the bottom of my carrier. Yeah, so really good features there. Continuing on to the back plate bag, it's more or less more the same thing. So there's actually a little less to talk about here. It's a piece of Velcro. It's Velcro on the back. It's sewn there. You can put a patch there. That's pretty much it. You have the OP rear flap, which all carriers like this should have by now, and the fact that they don't is hilarious and a little bit dumb. But anyways, ironically, even though they didn't need, this is a piece of Cordura that's part of the overall back panel here. They actually backed this with the slick ripstop stuff that the inside of the carrier, where the 3D mesh is backed with. They backed this with the same stuff. That's some strong Velcro, man. Anyways, I'm not sure why they did this. They technically don't need to do it. I'm not entirely sure what purpose it solves, but they did it. This is one of the many areas where you can see like they were trying real hard with this carrier. Like they were really trying to go the extra mile. So they were like, I guess thinking like anything that needs to be coated or double backed or something. Let's do all the things. So they did this. Doesn't need it, but they did it. So cool. Why not? Anyways, as talked about before, my gripe about the two pieces of Velcro here is more so with this, with the flap here, because you can see when you bend it, maybe you can see how the edges start to kind of roll out. So over time, those are going to, obviously pull more than if it was just a single piece of Velcro. If anything, I would gripe less about it being on the back than the front, because you're going to set your cummerbund once, maybe twice, and be done with it. So really, this isn't going to get that much use as opposed to the front. But the front really kind of peeves me. That it's not one piece, when clearly the ability to get Velcro in the size exists. Anyways, nothing to be griping about Velcro. There's also a drag handle in the back here, and it's nice, thin, little 1-inch piece of webbing that it's made of, and there's a piece of Velcro on the back so that it doesn't just hang out the back. It attaches nice and tightly to the back of this plate carrier, so it actually does retain kind of a low profile. How well this would work if you're going to wear it under a shirt, if you're going to try to use this as a semi-concealable carrier, yeah, I mean, obviously it's another thing that's going to print, because it's right at the top here where the plate's going to either curve up or there's the edge of the plate here. So this is going to be something that's going to print extra under a shirt. That being said, they also did, I think, the best choice they could do for a multi-role slick carrier like this. As with most drag handles, how durable this is going to be as far as if you actually did have to grab somebody and drag them with it, I don't know. Because the inside of the plate bags here is, hold on a second, let's see if I can turn this inside out. So you're not going to be able to see it because trying to turn this rear plate bag inside out is an absolute bitch. I might be able to pull it up. Alright, here we go. I've seized a piece of it. Even this simple little drag handle is both bar tacked on both sides of the webbing where it goes underneath the rear piece of Velcro and box stitched in the middle. So it's actually sewn on there pretty well. Again, how much weight this could handle dragging, I don't know. Drag handles do have a bit of a rep for failing under loads like that, but I point that out for the simple fact that they could have just sewn it single-stitched right here, like some companies would have. You know who we're talking about. They could have just single-stitched it right here, but they didn't. They went ahead and double bar tacked it, and box stitch the middle down. So it actually is pretty durable. And if you're going to use this, say, to like pick your plate carrier up while it's fully loaded to like carry it around or something, you could actually, I would say, regularly use it to do that and be pretty confident in the long-term durability. This is one of the many areas on this carrier that I've actually been really impressed with. I mean, I'll say Platatac is one of those brands that I kind of wrote off a little bit over the years, and then getting some of their pouches and this plate carrier thing, I gotta say I've kind of changed my mind about them a little bit. They're actually pretty solid, and it seems like they're actually, even if they go about it a little bit a little bit dumbly in some areas, it seems like they're really actually trying to go the extra mile with their gear and do stuff that's actually genuinely well sewn and durable, while at the same time keeping the price somewhere that's actually somewhat reasonable. Um, you got to hand it to them for that. I mean, that is something as simple as a drag handle. At least they didn't overlook the sewing on that. All right, back to what I was talking about with the rear plate bag. The interior of the rear plate bag is exactly the same as the front. It's the 2-inch piece of Velcro on a flap with a 4-inch piece of square Velcro underneath it, and then the riser strap with the 3 or so inch piece of vertical Velcro on top. 3D mesh is still backed with the weird slick ripstop stuff. And then the main plate bag is just a piece of corduroy. Nothing to write home about, but overall sewn well. The Velcro on here, on both the front and rear, is, it's single, what I'll call single and a half stitched. It's double stitched at the bottom, and then single stitch everywhere else. I think this one's the same. This one's just single stitch all around except for on the sides, where it's doubled up for some reason. I think that's okay. Like I said, this is kind of similar to where I would forgive a little bit of skimping because it's something that you're going to probably set once and be done with it. Same thing with this rear flap and rear Velcro panel being 2 pieces of Velcro instead of 1. You're going to kind of set it once and forget about it. So that doesn't gripe me too badly. The Velcro on the back here is also single stitched, but it is also box stitched as well, so it's not just floating in the middle. All right, the other thing I would like to talk about on the back here is how the shoulder straps are sewn in to the back of the plate carrier. So this plate carrier uses standard type adjustable shoulder straps, where it's a single piece of some sort of rubberized laminate material. It's not Hypalon, and it's not the helium whisper stuff that Blue Force Gear uses. It feels like a Cordura laminate on the top, like that Squadron kind of, Cordura laser cut shit, but on the bottom, it's rubberized. I don't know what it is, but it seems pretty solid, and it definitely doesn't stretch or have any weird give to it. So I'm down with it. It's it's shoulder strap material. It works. The shoulder strap's then attached to a piece of webbing that is sewn into the body of the plate carrier, which I'll get to in a second. It attaches via these 2 plastic buckles, one on each side. These are just standard ITW bar buckles. Nothing special about them. How durable these are going to be for if you're going to put a enhanced level of weight on this carrier, I'm not sure. They do have a little bit of, flex to them because it's just a simple little, open bar type buckle. I don't know. But I would say it's probably good enough for the amount of weight that most people are likely going to be putting on this thing. So, somewhere between 25 to 30 pounds max. it'll probably be alright. My other gripe with this is that the good news is it does recess into the body of the plate bag, and therefore it is backed at least somewhat by the 3D mesh, which does help to add a little bit of comfort to it. However, this is an actual hard buckle here, and one of the reasons why I tried to get away from any plate carrier that uses a pull-through buckle design for the straps like this is because those buckles can lead to some discomfort depending on how the carrier fits over your back or shoulders, as well as if you're going to wear a backpack with this, how this carrier fits you combined with how the backpack straps and if it has a frame or anything, how that's going to run across this can be potentially a bit of an issue. But that's kind of a end user thing to figure out, but I figured I'd mention it just so that anybody buying this is aware. As far as how these shoulder straps are sewn in here, well, trying to get this out is even more a pain in the ass than trying to pull the carrier inside out, but I'll try to get it to a point where it can actually be seen. The best I can figure, there's some sort of, I think, second layer of Cordura on the upper interior of the carrier, because if you put your hand on the inside of the carrier and feel up into here, you can't feel the stitching for the Cordura on the inside. You feel like the slick material is on the other side of this. So maybe it's folded over, maybe there's a second piece of Cordura sewn in here somewhere, I don't know. Anyways, there's some sort of other piece of Cordura in here that's sewn into the actual edges of the plate bag. And then, as you can see here, that piece of Cordura comes around and it's sewn to the actual end-to-end seam of the plate bag. And then on the bottom, we have the mesh material. Not the mesh, excuse me, the nylon ripstop stuff that the 3D mesh is backed with, but this isn't attached to the actual back of the 3D mesh. If I stick my fingers in here, the plate, it goes right into the main body of the plate carrier. So there's something else going on there, and I've turned this carrier inside out trying to figure it out, and I really can't. That being said, once again, this piece of webbing is bar tacked in on both top and bottom, and then box stitched in the middle to both types of material, both the Cordura on the top and the slick stuff on the bottom. And that material is sewn in here elsewhere, so I'm going to call it okay. I don't see any obviously bad sewing going on here. I think it'll hold up. Again, for the amount of weight that's likely to be on this thing, if bar-tacked Cordura can't, I mean, if that's good enough for the front, it's probably good enough for the back. I think it'll be all right. And like I said before, ironically, this is actually some of the more durable type of stitching I've seen on any of the slick-scalable carriers I've had over the years. So that's kind of saying something. Now, the funny part here is the shoulder straps. The bottom here, the bottom is lined with a 1-inch piece of loop Velcro. So I guess if you were going to use shoulder pads that have some hook Velcro on the top of them, that would interface with this and keep, hold it in place. And then the top piece of Velcro is really well sewn on here. Like it is standardly stitched around, and then at 1 inch, approximately ½ inch, 3/4 inch intervals, it's double stitched across the middle, all the way from the top to the bottom. Like I said before, I commend these guys for. You can tell they're really trying hard with this carrier, but boy, they were really, really trying hard with these shoulder straps. Like they were convinced that this Velcro was never going to come off these shoulder straps. Of anything else, I've never seen anyone go this absolutely mental sewing on Velcro for the shoulder straps, but by God, they did it. Anyways, yeah, you don't have to worry about the Velcro ever coming off this shoulder strap because it's sewn on here really well. Yeah, yeah, it's a apocalypse-proof level of sewing there. Uh, all right. So, anyways, now we'll get on to my kind of final thoughts here with this. All right. So, as far as final thoughts go, um, like I said before, I'm actually really impressed with the level of quality and effort that they put in to a simple, slick scalable carrier. Especially for the price it's at, it's actually pretty good, and easily better than some of the other more well-known options on the U.S. market. I do have a few gripes. I've covered some of them already. Number one, this pocket that has no way to actually retain anything in it because it doesn't have either a zipper or a piece of Velcro to hold it closed. Number two, the two-piece Velcro on the front, I feel like that could easily be changed to a one-piece piece of Velcro. I'd like to see that on the back and the flap too, but obviously it's less critical there. The drag handle is a little bit of a profile consideration, but it's otherwise well done. And again, if you were always going to have to wear this a lot in a semi-concealed mode, the simple solution to get rid of this is snip it. It's just one piece of single layered webbing, so getting it off would be super easy. Other than that, I think it's a decent grab handle / carry handle. As far as the straps go, they seem to be sewn really well. I'm not in love with the slot buckle being the way they attach. I prefer two-piece webbing for potential comfort issues that may arise with this hard piece of plastic running over your shoulder blade. At least it runs inside of the body of the plate bag, and there's some mesh there, but again, your mileage may vary on that. Now, overall, it's great. However, there are two other considerations with this carrier to take into consideration. Wow, effect. Using big college words now. Take into consideration. Number one, this is a medium-sized carrier. However, the size of the plate bags themselves is a little bit oversized. It's like a medium and a half, or medium and a third, somewhere in there. The plates I'm running are the Hesco 3810s in the standard SAPI 9.5, 12.5 size cut. So they're slightly less than an inch thick and a standard SAPI. So the length that they fit in here is totally fine. There might be like a 1/4 inch slack at the bottom, but that's no big deal. The width, however, it's got a bit of extra slack at the ends. So it kind of sloshes in the carrier a little bit side to side. Vertically, it's fine, especially with the extra riser strap in there. You don't really have to worry about a vertical fit too much, but from side to side, there's a little bit of extra width in this carrier, so there's a little bit of a slosh in there from side to side. I suspect this is, again, born out of Platatac trying to go the extra mile and compensate for either people with really thick plates or people who are going to wear, an inch-thick plate plus a soft backer. I think some of that slop would be taken up if my plates were a bit on the thicker side. That being said, it is something to be aware of, especially if you were going to try to say, oh, it has a riser strap in it, so I'm going to use my small plates. I mean, you're going to have a lot of excess space on the sides, even more so than a standard medium carrier that fits a medium plate exactly. You're going to get a lot of side slosh with a small plate in here. So that's a bit mildly annoying, but again, not a complete deal killer. It's just not as awesome as it could be. The the thing that could potentially be a deal killer for an end user goes back to these straps. And the problem with them is simply that they are extremely long. Like, this plate carrier already has a little bit of inherently, the straps are already going to be inherently a little bit on the long side because of the way that it's cut, with this extra bit of material that comes up here in the front, and especially on the back, you got a good bit of extra material as part of the plate bag itself. And because your plates are going to ride at a certain correct height to fit your body, then naturally this material is going to come up more onto the top of your shoulders or rear of your shoulder blade, etc. like that. So you're already adding an inherent level of length to those shoulder straps. And the shoulder straps themselves are also pretty long. So the problem I found was, in order to get it to fit me, granted I'm kind of a stick figure, but useful for anyone else who's a stick figure, I ended up having to adjust this down by, and maybe that's why they went overboard stitching these little lines in here, because it gives you a really great way to measure the straps to size them to yourself. But I ended up with I think it was about here, about the 3.5 row mark that I had to adjust it down to get it to fit me, between the length of the shoulder straps and the extra material from the way the plate bags themselves are cut. So as you can see, that leads to a lot of stuff hanging down across the front of the plate bag. And unfortunately, because they went all apocalypse, sewing this Velcro on here so that it can never possibly be removed, even if God himself wanted to remove it. The problem is it isn't easy for somebody on the end user side of things, if you had access to your own sewing machine or somebody who does sew. If this was less intensely sewed on here, you could have always unstitched it, chopped this down, melted it off, and then re-sewn your Velcro on here so that it would then match up correctly to fit the shoulder straps, where it's not, hanging down all the way to almost to the buckle across the front of the carrier. You can't do that because it's ridiculously overstitched, and I mean, you could unstitch it, but I would be concerned about how much it's going to potentially damage the material if I was to do that, and then trying to re-sew on top of that. Not ideal. But hey, they did a great job sewing this Velcro on. So yeah, as far as overall comfort goes, once you get everything adjusted down, even with the slightly less tight fit of the plate bags taken into consideration, the overall comfort level is still really good. Again, as I said in the review about the Slickster, this 3D mesh on the back does a great job of helping the plate edges meld to your body and helping that curve of the plate to just sort of meld and like a bit of like Play-Doh, just helping it to kind of gummy itself to the shape of your torso. As I also said with the Slickster review, I'm totally ambivalent about the 3D mesh. I know some people lose their minds over it because it retains heat, but I've not found it to be any worse than bare Cordura. That being said, my personal preference is still for a basic Cordura backing with a couple of long rows of soft loop Velcro, so that you could add an aftermarket pad or cooling vent type backer to the carrier. I think that's a much more useful thing, especially if this is going to be kind of a multi-role carrier that you're going to want to wear both semi-concealed as well as scaled up to be an overt, fully loaded carrier. I think that's the way of the future. It's the way of the future. It's the way of the future. It's the way of the future. That's the way to go for something, because it does, getting rid of this 3D mesh does help to reduce the thickness of the carrier when it's worn a little bit. So, a little bit of help for if you're wearing it concealed. But other than that, I'd rather, if I had to err on the side of I can only have one or the other, well, I'd sure rather have the 3D mesh than, some of that slippery nylon stuff. Like I said before, the stuff that like the 6094s have in the back is just an absolute killer when it gets hot. So I'd take the 3D mesh over that any day of the week if I couldn't convince all the plate carrier companies in the world to go to the OP method of Cordura with, loop strips on the back of it. But that's my own personal preference. The other thing this carrier does right is, as I also mentioned in the Slickster review, it has the OP shoulder angle. It's not straight straps like the LV119 and T-Rex arms and some other carriers. It does the correct angle, which is super great because this allows it to ride across your shoulders in a way that is comfortable and doesn't ride into your neck or your neck muscles, etc., stuff like that. So between the 3D mesh and the fact that it has the correctly sized, correctly spaced angle to the shoulder straps, this thing is very comfortable to wear for extended periods of time. So yeah, there you have it. Hope you guys got something out of this, and if you were on the fence about whether or not you want to buy this carrier, I hope this has helped you make a decision. Thanks for watching. As a side note, yes, this is a secret scene at the end of the video. I also meant to mention, talking about the quality of this thing, some of the other places that they've kind of gone the extra mile, whereas in this pocket at the top, even though it doesn't have Velcro holding it closed, they bar-tacked the edges at the top where you're going to be pulling on the most to get it open. I wish they would have added a piece of Velcro or a zipper at the top, because it really would have put this over the top, especially with how deep it is. But alas, there had to be a mistake somewhere. Following up on that, the body of the plate bag around the edge is both double stitched, as well as, again, at the bottom where the most strain is going to be when you're trying to insert a plate. I'm not sure if you can see that, but it too is also bar-tacked at both sides on the bottom, both on the front and the rear plate bag. So yeah, they they really put the effort in on this one.